So today, on the occasion of Teachers' Day, we have invited three very amazing teachers to share their ideas on education, the role of educators, and how understanding mindfulness can be the key. So let's dive right in. What do you think are the challenges of modern day education and how are they different from maybe a few decades ago?
In the few years I have dabbled with teaching, I have seen a lot of change that happened in the education scenario. For one, the constitution of the classroom has changed a lot. Previously, we did not have to address certain issues that have come up in the past 10 years or so. For instance, there is the boys' locker room talks that surfaced recently. We didn't have to earlier address this. Or secondly, it could be narcotics. Thirdly, the impact of peer pressure from online community. It's one thing with children, but with young adults, there is even lesser control on what's the kind of content they're exposed to. So there is also the increasing issue of a lot of students who come from broken families. And so the issues of parenting reflecting in behavior as young adults, for instance, violence in youngsters. So a whole lot of new challenges are there in the classroom in our times. So that's another thing that I want to point out, the disjunction between real life and the classroom learning. That's tremendous too.
Yeah, it is very true that with the changing challenges, the educationists should be able to prepare the students and the learners to face these changing challenges. Maybe we are not as yet very effective in this. And when I think of what we could do or what the reasons for this could be, my mind goes back to the Gurukula system of ancient Bharat. In the Gurukula, the Shishya or the student or the disciple stayed in the Gurukula, the Guru's family, with the Guru's family, and it was a very personalized learning that happened to every learner. From there, if you look at today's scenario, we have moved to distance mode of education, where the teacher and the taught not once even see each other.
I think the solution lies in blending both. We do need the secular education that we have right now, and this education unfortunately is focusing a lot on the skill sets and the academic or intellectual acumen building, but it is slightly quite deficient in building life skills, attitudes, and belief systems which are required for both teachers and students in order to face life. And I think that the foundation or the basis of a holistic human being lies in value systems, and therefore the blend of both secular and spiritual education is important. The other thing which I would like to say is that if you want to create people of strength, then body, mind and soul has to be addressed, and so we need to do something about even the soul part of education so that we can build resilience in our teachers and students.
All this sounds amazing, but also like a ton of work on the educator's end. How do you think can educators give their very best but also make sure that they don't drain out?
For one, there is this urgent and imminent need to normalize discourses on mental health. Also, you often have to take up this role of a sponge to absorb a lot of pain and trauma that the students have gone through. There are many occasions like that, but there is a limit to how much a teacher can be there, isn't it? Normalize mental health discourses and also show the students that it is absolutely normal to want to take a break, and also seek help of all these tools that are available, all these services that are available out there. That's a very important thing.
I think the problems which beset a teacher are really quite a lot. For example, look at the sheer numbers in a classroom. I mean, today education has something like a factory approach of mass education. So given all that activity that a teacher does, it is not surprising that she or he is extremely stressed. And we are talking about how education can be meaningful if you have some quality time, quality time with the student. And for that quality time with the student, you need to have quality time as an educator with yourself. And I think when you don't give a me time to yourself, there is not a you time you can give it to somebody else. And so I definitely think that we have to do something in order to address this issue of, not having a quality of me time for the teacher.
So when we talk about mental health, we know that yoga, meditation, mindfulness, all of this plays a major role. How do you think that educators can inculcate all of this into their system, and how does it impact them?
Mindfulness as a technique is being applied in many walks of life. And I think it is also important for teachers, educationists to have this exposure to the technique called mindfulness. When you're mindful, you gather your mind, you are in the moment, and you're more focused. All of which are very essential to make a very productive impact on your learners. To me, two facets of mindfulness are very important for educationists. One is being aware, the other is being in the moment. Self-awareness in a teacher can always help to face the students and the learners in front of them with a better approach. So being aware is one part. Being in the moment helps the educationist to be focused, to have more compassion, to leave behind the baggage of the past. So if we are able to concentrate on being aware in the real sense of the term and be in the moment, I think mindfulness is achieved in the life of a teacher.
Mindfulness as a practice is often connected to this Buddhist master called Thich Nhat Hanh, and he details various ways in which we can practice mindfulness. We have to look at ways in which we can practice it in classrooms. So what are the various tools that we can actually practice in the classroom in secular environments is something that we have to look at. Walking meditation and a few seconds of silent sitting. These are all very crucial tools that help us anchor deep within, and that's something that comes with training. As for the educator, some things that we can look at is can we all develop our own individual rituals to ground us, daily practices to ground us.
I think mindfulness is extremely essential for a teacher. We were discussing till now about all the problems that beset this generation, and in order to grow well, what they require is a certain amount of space, a certain amount of acceptance, and a certain amount of mentoring, or the ability that they have somebody whom they can look up to. Now, in order to fulfill that role, the teacher herself or himself should have that sense of being and acceptance of herself or himself. And therefore, I feel mindfulness is a big thing for a teacher or an educator. Because when you practice mindfulness, then you are getting the space to just be you. And when you exult in that, it creates in you a sense of detachment, I think, a sense of completeness, which allows you to act like an absorbing pad for others, and also create the space for them to grow. So in general, if we want to help others or even help ourselves, we need to create that resilience and that ability in ourselves, and that is definitely what mindfulness and meditation can bring to a teacher.
Beautifully put. Now, can each of you please share a personal anecdote or any advice that will inspire the new, budding, upcoming generation of teachers?
For one, it has to be an act of passion, you know. You cannot arrive at teaching after having tried out a bunch of other things. You have to come to teaching because you want to be a teacher. You want to be associated with young minds. It's refreshing for sure. You are really having a lot of power in your hand when you choose to be a teacher, and you can really impact ad infinitum. The impact is still infinity. We have to be willing to learn every day and reinvent ourselves ever so often. It's a very organic, classroom is a very organic moment, and we have to be willing to learn, and not just learn subject matter but also learn from the students. They often have a lot to teach us, so we have to be really open to learning. And the third thing that I would like to say is the rewards are not always monetary, and at the same time it is magical.
So in the teaching profession, unlike in many other professions, what the teacher deals with on a day-to-day or a minute-by-minute basis are real human beings, work in progress, little children or troubled teenagers trying to become mature adults and undergoing that struggle. So even as we teach the subjects, it's important to consider this very important facet.
I think the advice I would give any aspiring teacher is the advice I received from my guru. The thing is that a teacher, let's liken a teacher to a fire. So if you come too close to this fire, it will burn you. And if you are too distant from this fire, you won't receive its warmth. So I think the role of a teacher or an educator is like a fire. You have to maintain that ideal distance from a student, such that a student gets warmth of the presence and the being of a teacher. At the same time, they don't move too close to this teacher.
Good education is essentially something which covers the worldly as well as the spiritual aspect of the being, for both the receiver and the giver of knowledge. We would like to thank Dr. Suma, Dr. Rani and Dr. Lalitha for being a part of this panel at ThinkRight.me and sharing their very inspiring thoughts. Thank you.